Do you
Scarjo.
do you guys think that you've preserved your creativity through adulthood?
I will say that I've actually been able to refine it more.
You're in a very specific position.
Yeah.
Because both of your adults.
Yeah, they both geeky as crap. They still kids right now.
Creative.
I can't lie, so
yeah.
When they're both artists.
Yeah. So I'm very blessed with that. I'm very grateful for it.
Right.
But yeah, I have parents who realize that being a child is like not actually a thing that ever ends. Everyone has the childlike creativity of wonder and wanderlust and all that. But if it's not a thing practiced, or if it's not a thing that society tells you can have,
right,
then you don't work out that muscle.
I see.
You know?
So what about you, Tony? You think you've kind of preserved your creativity?
I wasn't creative growing up.
No, really.
I was a jock.
Get up. Who?
Are you serious?
That's why my knees are bad, but they still work. I can touch my toes. I can put my feet behind my head, but it's like I was
really
the first thing I wrote.
I'm guessing you played baseball,
soccer, basketball, football.
That's very interesting. I didn't know this about
a little
you.
bit of tennis.
My dog. Okay,
that's very
and gymnastics.
So
your creativity is kind of got better as you got older.
The first thing I wrote was in high school.
Right.
Well, no, the first thing I wrote, but the first thing I'm proud of writing because it was not that bad. It's for a high school writing contest. And I won, and I won like the little meet the author thing.
That's powerful.
And I wrote it the night before, just like at 3 a.m. on my mom's Gateway computer.
I like it.
And I printed it out. I'm like,
out of business now, but I like it. Yeah. That's interesting.
Definitely got more creative as I got older.
So. Wow.
Yeah.
What about you, Nikki Lee?
I think kind of as time's gone on, like when I was younger and I was creative, I was like not afraid.
I like it.
To be creative. And I feel like as I've gotten older, and especially as I've encountered more people in their craft, and even as I've taken classes, in a lot of ways, I actually feel like it stunted me a little bit because I feel like I'm less prone to taking risks.
I'm with you.
I feel like I worry too much about my own writing.
I'm with you.
Sometimes I get stuck in my head. And when I read other people's stuff, there was a point I stopped enjoying reading actually because I was so critical. I just couldn't even I don't know. I was just trained to analyze everything on the page. I had to learn to release that a little bit so I could go back to enjoying what I was reading and not just turning it down. But actually on this exact subject, I just finished a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and it's essentially a spiritual guide to rediscovering your creativity because I was starting to feel really blocked, and it was really good, and I feel like it's helped me a lot actually regain that sense of identifying as an artist and a writer and wanting to be creative and create things and not be so caught up. I guess I have a perfectionism streak that comes into my creativity. So and that's the death of a writer because it will never be perfect.
100%.
So when I was younger, I don't feel like I felt that pressure as much, but as I've gotten older, and the perfectionism's gotten worse and worse and worse, it has impacted my creativity as well, especially as I learned more about the craft itself. Then I started to feel oh my gosh, am I ever going to be good? Not taking stock of my own writing. And then I could go back and read my stuff that I've written. I'm this is great.
This is great. Amazing stuff.
Right.
I did the same thing when I used to have Facebook notes. I used to write my poetry on Facebook notes, and I would go back maybe 8 years and I'll see some of the stuff and I'm where was this crest? I'm this is so full of emotion and angst. But then I had a period where I stopped writing poetry once I learned how to write poetry. So it kind of threw me off because my creativity was kind of stunted because I learned how to write with structure, how to write with tone, how to write with rhythm. So I'm I can't write this, or if I write this, it has to be good enough to where a peer could review it and it would be, succinct with the rules of good poetry or the rules of whatever the masters of poetry have deemed them to be.
Good poetry.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So once I learned, it's mostly 18th century poetry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense because poetry is not really, there's no real rules, but in some aspect, I guess I just felt if I did it right in some sort of structure, I couldn't give this to a professional and have them read it and then feel like, oh, this guy's a good writer. You know what I'm saying? So I had a period, like a long period where I didn't write anything.
I will say I was never able to reconcile the difference between like creating structured poetry and then just I have a blurb that I want to make about a point,
Right.
and then just
Free verse.
That is poetry.
I've never known
It is poetry.
where that separates, and so I've been.
It's about rhyme scheme and
Exactly, and so I've been like scared to like, I guess not scared, but averse to making poetry because of that.
Yeah.
A lot of times I just have thoughts that are just blurbs, and yes, this sounds really nice in text and written, but I don't know if it needs to rhyme or
no, it does not. I prefer my poetry not to rhyme. Actually,
Yeah, I agree.
I have no idea where to. Okay, I'm learning.
Yeah,
Nani?
Shit.
I agree.
I mean, crap.
Yes.
In the first 30 seconds.
No, it's fine. You're good.
Okay, cool.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, because we're 13 minutes in. You just didn't know it.
Perfect. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, we are. How did we even get that long? How did even?
because we're vibing.
The song is called 4 a.m. by Takeo Onuki.
I will be listening to this later.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
For
as
sure.
you should. As you should.
For sure.
As you should. Welcome back to Loud About Nothing. If you are listening on YouTube, you're just hearing this from here. We had a whole conversation.
Dang.
No, I'll make the cut. I'll make the cut.
About 15 minutes of it.
Yeah, I'll
I
make
see.
the beginning cut before the music.
Okay.
Yeah, because
It's important.
I can't put the music on YouTube.
That's
Figure it
important.
out.
Maybe one day I'll be able to get a license. Because I know some other podcasters have a license, like music podcasts.
Do they have like a
different-
CDL for music?
Yeah. They have a CD. They're driving the truck of music. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Welcome back to Live About Nothing, where we talk about expensive social topics. Today we're talking about writing, mostly the art of writing, so we know it'll cool poetry. Your boy's strong suit. Even though I haven't written in forever.
God.
you should write again.
It's fine.
Then you should come hang out with me and Anthony.
Yes, maybe. I'm too
You
busy.
should, bro.
I mean, you
I'm
come
too
with me
busy.
to-
My ambition's lie in filmmaking right now, and I'm just trying to get my first project out. So
According to Julia, that would be called a block, sir, and they're lies that we
Really?
tell ourselves to prevent us from being creative.
Julia's wrong. I'm very busy. I'm very busy.
Real talk.
This is an entertainment podcast where we say our opinions on stuff, and we just kind of talk from the heart and sometimes from the mind. Nothing we say here is really a giant reflection of us IRL. So you should, do your own research. We are not authorities on anything.
I'm an authority
So-
on things.
That's true,
Hopefully-
actually.
Actually, you kind of
Very
is.
knowledgeable.
Let
A
me,
little bit.
Let me let y'all know, guests.
little
All
bit.
of them have literal degrees, so actually they
That's
are
true.
an authority.
Fahrenheit, not
Actually.
Celsius.
Get
He's
it?
actually fair there, but I'm just letting you know, I do not have a degree in English, so
Yeah, among the four of us,
They
there's
are-
3 English degrees.
they have
Yeah.
and are an
2
authority.
masters? 1 master?
No, I don't have a master's.
One
So
master.
there's 4 English degrees.
4 English degrees amongst all of us.
And it's not
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
all I'm saying is, yes, actually, this
interesting.
episode, they are an authority on writing.
A little bit.
Just saying.
a little bit.
I am not. I'm just going to give opinions the whole time. But
Maybe
yes.
Tony more because he went
a
through the trouble of getting the
master's.
creative.
Yeah,
writing.
man's got the
Does have a
master.
Yeah.
creative
The trouble.
writing one.
That's
The trouble
real
is-
trouble.
If
I'd say.
we were not in America and using English language, I would indeed call him master in some way, shape, or form.
Sifu.
But that's weird. So
Sifu.
we're in America, y'all. I'm
Like,
You
sorry.
can just call me friend. That's fine.
Yeah, friend's fine.
Oh, okay.
No, not that
sorry,
one.
Sorry,
Pal.
Sunday.
Pal,
Friend.
buddy.
You don't like pal?
I'll take pal.
Okay.
Palisman.
My name is Chris. Over here we have
Trey the Third.
over here we have our wonderful guest. Thank you guys so much for coming. We have Tony.
Hello.
And then we have Chicken Nikki Lee.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. And you guys are like the brain trust here today because since we're talking about one of my favorite things to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So and I wanted to bring our
Sleep.
people together.
Our people together.
That's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, we
That's
have to
strong.
bring our people together for this.
That's strong.
Thank you.
Nikki Lee, how you doing, dude?
I'm good.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Chris?
I'm also good. I've been so I was telling you guys I've been what's the one I'm looking I've been tutoring Erica,
Yes, my cousin.
right? ACT
Yes.
prep.
So wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they trying so hard to trick these kids in the ACT? Because when I'm reading the passages, I'm like, oh, this answer is correct. But then I go read the answers like, no, it's B, not A. But I'm like, but A is also correct because A can be backed up by the reading. So I'm like, they're like, B is the best answer. But I'm like, but A is also a good choice. So I can see how the kids can get really confused in some of these these tests, like they're making it so confusing for no reason.
It's more about like tricking them.
Yeah. Do you want to know my honest opinion?
Yeah.
I don't even think that you should take multiple choice tests on reading.
100%.
I think that's BS.
Blows my mind.
I agree with you.
I feel like that any interpretation of a text can be valid depending on how you argue it.
Right.
So not any, like you can't go fully out there, but I feel like a true test of knowledge about understanding or reading can only be answered if you write or if you or it's some sort of open-ended option of questioning, unless it's like an objective fact about the text, like who was the main character,
right,
what is point of view, but if it's an interpretation, I feel like the multiple choice questions start to get
it's really tough,
blurry.
Weirdly, I've actually in my own head, and again working at Spady, politics, but I've always kind of started to believe that multiple choice was actually the start of this like low attention span like youth, because instead of having deeper, greater understandings of the text you're trying to understand, you are automatically stuck to only these 4 options. Somehow all the above is somehow also an option, and some are wrong, some are right, and you just need to think as fast as possible, because we then go through these like trials and skills of this is how you take tests better. This is how you should spend only this amount of time on each question. If you can't get it, just guess at the end of it. Blah, blah, blah.
But it's like what 35 questions, 40 minutes or something.
Yeah,
like that?
and then
It's their strategy to it.
It's a thing.
And then we make a strategy now.
The thing is, it's not about the multiple choice. It's about the way those 2 tests are specifically structured.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like disenfranchising people of color.
100%.
Specifically making those tests to make it difficult for people to answer those questions.
Yeah.
And I think that when it comes to those interpretations, it's a lot of those tests just being structured
Like, dude,
really poorly.
if it says
I agree.
locomotive, like not every kid's gonna know
Right.
what the heck a locomotive
Erica
is.
Well, and
didn't
like-
know what a lot of the words meant.
Well, and the thing is too, and as a teacher, as you come across different students, the background knowledge that a student brings to the test is so varied. And a lot of these tests revolve around texts from like the 1800s and time periods like that.
The 2 I read was from 1903 and 1884.
Where people of color were like not even allowed to write in America, and elsewhere in the world were being, suppressed, and their voices were not allowed to be heard. So when we think of the word classics or classical literature, a lot of times it has to do with who was allowed to be heard, and not necessarily, I think, any sort of special, greatness that these specific authors had. So when you bring that combination, where you have mostly European background passages, and then you present it to a diverse group of kids. Of course, kids that come from a European background are going to have an advantage because their families are from that culture. And I think there's a huge cultural aspect, even when you think of how stories are told and how some cultures have different ways of storytelling, and like the concept of the essay and like doesn't exist in some cultures. That's not how they argue with each other or how they debate a point. So when you go on
so
even
makes
into
sense,
that,
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
right? It doesn't even like when they're reading the text, they're like they don't even understand how to begin to interpret this because this doesn't exist in their culture. So like it's just there's layers of why these kind of tests I don't think adequately capture student achievement.
Yeah.
I think it's such a false representation of the students' skills.
Yeah.
It doesn't really allow them to interpret it. It's just like, is this supported by the text? And then you have 8 answers supported by the text.
And you're listening to other people's answers of the text.
Right.
You're not actually interpreting
It's not
it.
your interpretation.
You're making
of the
sure
text.
that these other people's options.
And it becomes like a test-taking skill, not a reading skill.
Yeah.
We
Not
teach-
critical thinking
We
anymore.
teach test taking skills explicitly.
Well, that's why
Trash.
that's why a lot of admissions offices are just doing away with those standardized
Yeah.
tests now. So
Yeah. I hope they remove them all. I feel so
man.
bad for Erica because I'm reading some of this. I'm like,
Well,
I can see why you need some tutoring. Like, what is this?
Like, no matter how great of a person I think she is, like, no matter how wholesome or happy or healthy she might actually be, simply because she is not taking these tests right, the school easily can say she is not intelligent, she's not doing good enough, and does not need to go to college and further her understanding of people.
Because your test taking is bad.
Because her test taking is bad. And, like...
Well, if you test a fish on its ability to fly, it will always fail.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, like the test is not designed for your strengths and you're going to do poorly on it. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're coming, and if the test is designed specifically to some people's strengths and not others, you're going to see that difference, especially when you think about like these corporations in general that create tests because they're corporations.
They're trying to get paid.
They,
Talk to me,
and who is sitting on the table deciding what questions appear on the test. Like, you know, just basic knowledge of the history of this country will tell you who's sitting behind that desk. And it's not.
Yeah. Facts. You can listen to this podcast on all major podcasting sites and or apps. Also, you could watch us on YouTube at A Lot About Pod, because YouTube doesn't do the URLs anymore. You do ads now, so it's at A Lot About Pod or A Lot About Nothing podcast. It's hard to miss us. Our thing is a giant microphone head. The guy, his name is Alan. Subsequently, so.
I drew him. I'm very happy about him. Actually, he looks pretty cool.
I
draw a new one.
Trade drew him.
I'm gonna draw a new one on this.
Trade drew him.
He looks pretty great.
Tony, how you doing, man?
Looking at the. Should we look at the camera?
Oh, only when you feel like a dramatic need.
You don't
I
have
was
to
like
go
making
camera.
eye contact
I'm
with
doing
it, like
just
talking
fine.
to it. I'm
Thank
like,
you
should
so
I
much
be
for asking.
Thanks for that. I'm going to zoom in on
answering
that for a
questions
clip.
at the camera?
Yeah.
Hi.
When you're answering, what? Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
curious. He
When you
said
have
it a
your
few
moments.
times, and I'm like, am I doing something wrong?
No. I'm just
Trey just does this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tony, you said you're doing good?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah?
You know, just living life.
Yeah.
Doing my best.
All
Got
right.
a little bit I also teach, so I'm
True.
got a little bit of writing and editing done over the break.
I like it.
Got my first short story coming out on the 15th. So
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations, bro. You've worked hard. You've worked hard.
yeah, now just 99,750 more dollars and we'll have paid off that student loan.
It's a creative writing degree feel worth it.
But he has a master's.
200%.
I know, I feel
I'd do
you.
it for $200,000.
Hell yeah.
I'd be in debt the rest of my life for that degree.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, brother.
Great experience.
I like it.
man.
Trey, you all right?
I'm very happy and super happy that he and her are here and that we get to talk about this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm an amateur compared to everyone here, y'all. I just need y'all to know that. So
He's
as we
being
talk,
very.
Yeah, very generous.
I'll
He's
give
being very-
opinions.
He
Very
also like
generous.
wrote a book and like
Yeah.
it's whatever.
Gee, shit. It's like fantasy role playing
It's a
chess.
board
Yeah.
game.
It's called Cathedral.
Cathedral.
It's really crazy good.
Listen,
I don't
Where can you
understand what he's
find
talking
Cathedral?
about.
Oh my god.
You can find out on Amazon, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
it's
Amazon.
really- if you
Sale
just
on
Google
Amazon.
Fantasy role playing chess on
Yeah,
Google. He's
it'll
the
come
first
up
thing that comes up.
because it's very unique.
Yeah, it's right here. Actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it
My
right
heart. My heart.
here.
Yeah.
Probably like
Where you
right
putting
there
it?
too.
Can you put it right here?
Yeah, I'll put it right there.
Thank you.
Stop.
Right there.
My heart.
Yeah.
Knock over my
Yeah, go ahead and get that Cathedral book.
Plugging.
You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And
All right.
cathedral.com.
So I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, okay, thank you.
I've read your
Yeah.
stuff. Like, you can't lie to us.
Yeah, G
Told you. Fine.
I don't know who you are,
fine,
bro.
fine. No, they have been inspiring me though. I have started writing up a bit more bits on Cathedral, and actually, okay. So technically, I have 2 books I'm trying to start right now. So Cathedral is a
Stop
thing,
flexing.
and like there's this new entire IP like characters, world, universe. This is a whole new thing. I realize I can't give the name of it yet because I didn't copyright all of it yet. But I am indeed creating a new book that's like a fantasy based thing and dealing with some intense themes of like, frankly, racism and like dystopias and capitalism. But
I love capitalism.
I love it. I love talking about it.
Don't
bro.
we
So,
all love
gotta
capitalism?
love it. Gotta love it.
Unfettered capitalism.
It helps you with your test
If my
taking.
FBI agent's listening, I love
I
capitalism.
love capitalism so
You hear
much.
that, Joe?
please,
Making
Jim.
sure you
Jim,
know.
Jim, my
Jim
bad.
is Jimothy, if you will.
My bad.
Never think of anything else.
Except capitalism.
I love to work.
love to work. It's so great. It's so great. So
Lots to talk about, so we don't have an IQ today.
Indeed.
Because I know we're gonna go into so many.
we've asked plenty of questions already, so it works out. It works out.
It's a lot. We're probably not even gonna get through all these. But I was just wondering, what was the significance of like some of the last things you guys wrote? Like, what did it mean to you?
Oh,
So, for example, I think the last thing I wrote was actually for a
For my
writer's
workshop?
group. Yeah, and I think it was
That you should come back to.
maybe. I think it was the Villanelle I wrote that
I'm an
subsequently
amateur. What does that
separated
mean?
us from. It's
A Villanelle, you said?
yeah, it's a style of writing poetry that it has 2.
He's the poetry expert.
Is it ABBC or
No.
D?
No.
No.
No,
I'm sorry.
I think it's
I'm young.
It's AABB and then ABAB and then BB
Oh,
and then and then it goes. I forget what it is, but
That is a lot of letters.
it is. But I wrote the villain. I think that was the last thing I wrote for that, and I just wanted to try it out. I just wanted to see how well. To me, it wasn't even that big a deal. It wasn't that significant to me. Like it didn't. Like that's not something that came from the heart. That came from my mind. Like that took like a couple weeks to put together, but that was the first time I wrote like a good one, like a solidified villanelle, which I think I could write another one, but I'm just not feeling it these days.
I've learned that. Thank you for saying that also, because I've realized I'm not a poet who can come from the mind yet.
Yeah.
I only come from random spurts of.
I stopped doing that actually.
Yeah.
I cut my feelings off from my poetry.
That's peculiar. It's very peculiar.
Yeah.
Let's get into that a little
Wait,
more.
did you say you cut your feelings off from
in poetry?
That's not what I was saying. So I'm curious.
Well, the thing is,
like I only do it from feelings. I can't do it from like, yes, and I want to make this.
I think
I kind of understand where. I think I understand where you're coming from. I want to hear your explanation.
Well,
please.
I think I read this from Edgar Lee Masters, where I don't want to put myself in my poetry because I don't want to give you the answer to it, to the question of whatever the poem is asking. Like I don't want to put like my happiness or my sadness into it because I want you to interpret it in your own way. And so I kind of remove my emotions from the poetry, and I put more logical effort into it. So it's not obviously it's hard to completely remove yourself from your writing. It's coming from you. So one way or another, you're going to be part of it. But the idea is to give you something that I wrote, but I wanted to feel like a blank slate. If you get what I'm saying, I just wanted to feel like a blank slate to where whatever you feel from it is not something that I induced, from my own feelings, but from something you read in the passage or in a line. Maybe it was like a line that made you feel something, or maybe it was like the way it's written that made you feel something. I just don't want to put like if I'm feeling sad that day, I don't want you to know I'm feeling sad that day. I want to write a happy poem while I'm going through my worst time. You know what I'm saying? It's weird.
I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like what Cress is kind of getting into is like syntax and like tone and mood,
right? And
like removing necessarily his judgment from the work, and not necessarily that he's not drawing on his experiences of experiencing sadness, but like he's not writing from a place of sadness when he's writing about sadness. He's writing from a place of clarity about sadness,
understanding sadness,
and like that concept,
and
using his skills and tools to attempt to get the reader to have an interpretation of the text that is not necessarily dependent on his personal feelings in the moment, but on the way that he's developed the piece.
I think that
does that make any sense?
Yes,
that did actually. It made plenty of sense.
But I do think that I just disagree with the idea of that, with that specific idea, and I think that you're not writing for somebody else to read it. You're writing for you.
That's creativity for the sake of creativity.
If you don't write with yourself as your first reader and your first editor, if you can remove the sadness from that happy poem or the happiness from that sad poem, but you can't remove words from a blank page. So I think you just write, and that's what I'm going to tell everybody is just keep writing.
Beautiful.
I love that.
It's beautiful because he said it in a low voice, which I'm gonna have to like amplify.
He's like, well, no,
talking in a low voice,
like competing with Trey.
That's how people know.
I'm so surrounded by sultry voices right now.
I know. I was hearing my man talking.
Keep talking to me.
Keep doing what you do.
That's how people know that you know something when you talk in a low voice.
Yeah, that's how you know.
Do it argumentatively, you just do it from the mind.
Because the hamster's working triple overtime, so it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
Tell me, Tony, what was the significance of the last thing you wrote?
Let me just read the last thing I wrote.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh. By the way, I love that you bring that.
I know.
It makes me so happy.
Your consistency is so amazing.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah. This is a very important piece. So
okay.
I'm not.
Oh no, I think I know what it is. Actually,
don't give it away. No. Trey, this is from you.
Yeah, I know what it is.
I'm sorry. What?
I know what it is.
What?
My heart has an anus. Please let me finish. My heart has an anus. Sorry, let me do it one more time for the readers at home. My heart has an anus, and I clenched it. So the significance of that is Trey said some shit. I just want to write it down.
Oh my
god.
Oh no. My god.
Well, so the last thing I wrote, that wasn't that.
Thank you.
The last thing that I wrote, that wasn't a beautiful piece of poetry right there. Poetry is everywhere. Poetry is in you, friend. And now
It is in you.
it's in the heart of that notebook. Or the ass.
Or the
Or the anus.
Or the anus, if you will.
It's clenched.
Either way, this book, clenched.
Yeah.
Clenched.
The last thing I wrote is, for my thesis, I did 20 short stories. Fucking mistake. And so a few of them are part of a series I'm calling the Florida Weird series. So the first, I wrote them in chronological order, and they ended up going in reverse chronological order in the collection.
Nice.
And the last one is actually the one that got published. So now I have to work on everything from back to front and try to get them published like that, unfortunately. I'm actually just going to try to get anything published.
Yeah.
But that's what I was working on. I was editing that piece.
I know a publisher.
That's true.
Really?
That's true.
What's the name of that publishing company?
That's a Visual Adjectives.
They're pretty
Can you
cool.
put a
Visual
a
adjectives.
link? Visual
good vibe
adjectives.
right there.
Yeah.
Visual
Adjectives.
Adjectives.
Can you just like do like the spam where it's just covering?
Yeah,
the whole
yeah,
screen?
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah, I'll put this plan for you. Yeah, Visual Adjectives. It's a pretty good company. You know, they have
Pretty
this thing
cool.
called Go Publish. You can even publish yourself.
Also true.
Yeah, yeah. They have
Also
like a
true.
production company
Are you
too.
telling
So if
me
you want
that
to
I can
advertise-
publish myself?
Yeah.
That's
You can.
amazing.
Yeah, through Visual Adjectives. Yeah, it's like it's a publishing and production company. So
It's cool.
even if you want to do like marketing, they do that too. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, it's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
So
let
cool.
me know, dude. I'll connect you.
yeah, man.
Oh,
A
yeah.
little bit of
Appreciate
everything.
that.
A little
Thank
bit of
you.
everything.
Thank you.
It's pretty
I got
cool.
you.
It's pretty cool.
Adjective. But that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Your thesis, huh?
Yeah, it's awful.
I like it.
Thank you. But yeah, that's what I wrote. It's I'm just trying to think of how to describe it. It's just weird. It's just Florida.
I like
weird.
it.
Yeah.
I already
Florida
like it. Listen,
weird.
Generational trauma, the
Florida
alcoholism,
Oh, no,
the good
perfect.
stuff, tarot.
Oh, yeah.
It's got everything.
Is there
everything?
Any hurricanes in there? Or?
Yeah, of course.
Well,
but
tell
the
me this.
hurricanes
Yeah.
are in the climax.
Good
Of
stuff,
course,
good
as
stuff.
they where they
As-
belong.
They better
Yeah,
be.
exactly.
They better
Where
be.
they that's the
Exactly.
climax of any
Exactly.
Florida experience.
better
Thank you,
be.
thank you.
Every true Floridian knows.
Remember,
Yeah,
if it's not a Cat 5, we don't break out the hard liquor.
We don't
No, we
worry
don't.
about it. We
We
don't
don't.
worry.
We're not
Have you
even
ever
sweating.
written a full piece from whatever you've gotten down in your little notebook there?
Yeah. My first. So when I was driving back after a breakup through Texas, I was going down from Denver to Florida.
Talk about a coward.
I was
Wow. Strong twist.
I was struggling because I had to take a piss in the middle. It was in the middle of the night on a fucking Texas state road, and it must have been 3 a.m. I'm like, okay, finally, there's a rest stop. There's a big sign that says rest stop. I pull in, and it's a fucking graveyard.
What? Now, do you mean
And I'm
graveyard
like-
as in no one's there, or
No, I mean a
literally-
literal graveyard. So I pull into the next one. I'm like, fucking thank God, it's another rest stop. It'll finally stop. It's another fucking graveyard. So I ended
Wow.
up.
Why?
You said another
Where?
one?
This
So-
was in Texas.
Yeah, this was in Texas between Amarillo and Austin.
So there's-
Never go there.
So it's so rural that their cemeteries are also rest stops.
Yes. So I
Hey,
I
yo.
pull off. I wait until about halfway between this rest stop and the next rest stop, and I pee on the side of the road.
Yeah, no.
But that line where I wrote what is it? Ain't no rest stops between Amarillo and Austin, just graveyards is one of the lines from A Story in the Collection.
Wow.
It's a great line.
That's a country
That's a good
song
line.
somewhere, bro.
100% it's a country song.
Country
somewhere.
song somewhere has to.
Yeah. I love how you write your poetry, by the way, because I love poetries that tell poems that tell me a story.
be. True.
And whenever you read the poem, I'm really immersed in it because you take me there.
Appreciate
In very good detail. I
Well,
like it.
all those poems are actually from the same sequence.
I believe you.
Yeah, that's 21 poems and each one is a letter to alcohol. So I've
Good
only
thing.
read the happy poems so far.
Yeah,
but
I
this
know.
year is going to be this year a poetry night. If you come
Yeah.
up to the Arts Garage,
Excellent.
you're going to hear some depressing alcoholism.
I don't know. Maybe
poetry.
I might read something on my old stuff. Maybe.
Please do.
Yeah. Good thing we're drinking water.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
a
I
lot
am
of water.
actually drinking
a
water.
lot of water.
Definitely.
Me too.
Yeah.
Nikki Lee, same question
Hi.
to you.
Yes.
Tell me
Okay.
about the significance of the last thing you wrote.
So the last piece that I was writing on was from my novel that doesn't have a name yet. That I've been
is it
working on
with,
for a long time.
with my mans?
With your mans, yes. Liam and Dylan and their whole fucked up family.
That's just a debacle,
Bro.
son.
I love it. I love it, bro.
That's just a debacle.
I go.
So That's the last piece I was working on. And what's its significance to me? Well, it's this idea that I've had since I was like a little girl. I saw the Boondock Saints for the very first time.
Top tier.
And me and my friends were all young, and we like came up with this story like based off the film with like gangsters, and we would run around the neighborhood, and like some of it just stuck in my head. And then when I was like, I guess my senior year of high school, it became kind of like the bones of what it is now. So much has changed since then as I've changed. But so it's interesting because it's like this horrible like story about these terrible fucked up people that do drugs and murder each other. And it like came as a child. So I don't know, but
America.
Take that what you will. Yeah. America. I probably should not have been watching the Boondock Saints at that age, but it is what it is. I watched it. So
Same.
But anyway, I guess the significance of that piece for me is just I love exploring the concept of family and like what makes a family and power and money and what people are willing to do and what they're willing to destroy and what they're willing to build in order to get power, get money.
Get bitches.
Yeah, love,
yes,
like anything like that people want. Like, and I love crime and working with criminals because
I also love crime.
Yes, crime is the best.
Do crime and drugs.
And drugs.
Crime and
Don't do
drugs
that.
so Nikki can have
Students that are
More
listening
stories.
to the podcast, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah,
But-
if kids listen to this podcast, you shouldn't.
We do not.
It's not for your
We do
That
not.
goes
demographic.
double for my students. Stop doing drugs in the bathroom. I smell you smoking in there. Please.
We
Stop.
No, you're good.
But
But
that's wonderful. I can't wait to finish that book.
yeah,
I'm
just
so excited,
I don't
man.
know,
Yeah, I can't
exploring
wait to
all
do
of that.
Yeah.
And criminals are so fun because they have reduced inhibitions. I feel like they
Facts.
don't live
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the same kind of ideas that we live by, and the things that I know hold myself back don't hold them back. Like, morality, ethics. So
Basic human decency.
especially when you get to criminals that like are criminals because they can be like they're
to
not
be it.
right because
Yeah.
they're not like some people I think are criminals out of they have no other choice because they live in like poverty and they're kind of forced to survive. And then you have criminals that have tons and tons of money and they just take and take and take
And the endorphins hit
from
when
people
they mess up with
anyway
people.
Is
because it
this-
feels good to be evil.
Is this from the Wikipedia article for CEO? I'm just. Is this the?
It's like
the
no
anti-class
accident.
episode?
My gangsters are also CEOs. It's
Wow.
not what?
Oh wow!
Sure, you write
So
anything lately?
crazy.
Yes, actually, on to that same book that I was talking about earlier. I've now written technically like 2.5 chapters for it, but mainly has been outlining the rest of the chapters, and it's now at 5 books actually because I just have like the story plots that I want, and I know that in order to tell them, I want them to be expressed over multiple books. I don't want to rush them into just one big book. But again, it has been the best piece of storytelling advice I've ever seen or gotten, I guess, is write your truths. And I guess seems simple, but like write the truths you see around you. Like write how you see capitalism affecting the world. Write how you see slavery affecting the world, how you see racism affecting the world, how you see cultures mix or not mix, why they don't mix. Why does religion like spread? How does it not spread? How do other religions become quote unquote more valid than others? Those are concepts that I want to write with it. So
Nice.
I've been trying to make the themes directly that I'm dealing with be based around capitalism, which uses the tool of racism in order to create that hierarchy, and uses the tools of religion to then be the propaganda that makes the like hierarchy valid. Not that it is valid, but again, if you own the history, you declare what's valid. So that's kind of what I want to go to and what I've been kind of working with. And again, because it is like it's going to be like an illustrated novel, so I'll have like it's not a graphic, it's not a comic.
Right,
I'll
it's an
have
illustrated novel.
Yeah, I'll
I get
have
it.
big pictures throughout it that help illustrate what's happening.
It's New Legends.
You understand? So that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to. I want to showcase that, and I want to have like deeper themes in my writing more.
If you're wondering what New Legends is, it's a book series
very
published by Visual Adjectives. So if you want to pick that up, go ahead and go to visualadjectives.com. You'll pick that up. Don't worry about it.
in there, maybe.
What's tougher? Short?
Oh no!
Oh my god, he finally did a party
We'll
foul.
clean that up later.
I'm so happy.
I'll clean it up later.
Is it on
We'll
wood?
clean it up later.
It is on
I'll
wood.
clean up later.
This
paper
is
towel.
recorded
There's
live.
napkins
I'm
there.
so
The
happy.
studio.
Oh my god.
I'll clean it up later.
I've been waiting for this man to spill for like 100 episodes. I'm not gonna lie to
And
you.
he's never done it before.
He's never
I
done
feel
it
so
before.
honored.
Honestly,
Yeah.
same.
Thank
He's
First time
cutting
you
this
ever
out
see
for
me,
sure.
do
He's
this.
gonna make sure.
No,
this
you're
never
gonna edit it
goes.
out.
I'm not
Cut
editing
that,
this
cut
out.
that,
Bro, he better keep that in there.
I'm human.
I'm gonna be mad if you don't keep this
You're
in there,
human?
bro.
I'm human.
Oh.
It's hard to tell.
Is-
Destroying.
Are you just finding this out?
Trey's
Am I at the
floor.
right pod?
It is.
I'm a lizard person.
How about to say, are you an anthropod?
Yeah.
That was really effective
It
and
was?
definitely helped stop the flow.
Good
100%.
stuff. That's
Yeah.
good stuff.
It was really good.
Glad I could help.
What were you about to ask before nothing happened?
What's
for those
You
of
are
us
at the
who are
right
listening?
what's tougher to write? Like a short form piece or like a long form piece? Or does it depend on the subject?
Who's that?
I'm gonna say
What do you
long
think?
form because
You think long form's harder?
yes, because I want long form content to have, bro. If something is like, I don't know, 5 books long, I want to know I want to foreshadow a secret book 1 and book 5. I finally get. Oh, I know now. Like that's
Is
what I
that
want.
the reaction?
That's the reaction. he
Looking at
wants
you,
to
Oda.
like
get.
half the time, like
Thanks, One Piece.
sorry. I'm sorry if that was in public. I'm sorry. Yes,
That was you were really into that,
sorry,
man.
but yes, I'm just saying. Oda's a genius.
Absolutely.
You guys are
Bless
buddies.
this man.
Thank you.
I don't know about genius.
Bless. Listen,
I'm sorry.
if you go 1,000 chapters,
I mean, it
with-
gets a little boring in between.
Well, that's because
he's uncultured.
Do
Anyway,
you watch One Piece?
no, I read
Cress?
it. First of all,
Don't-
I'm
Read
not
it.
talking to you.
I'm
I'm
Read
talking
it.
to Cress.
But
Read
that's
it.
the issue, right?
Cress?
There's 1,000 episodes of One Piece.
Do you
issue
watch
is-
it or
To
do you read
trudge
it?
No, I watched a few episodes.
Cress,
So I probably watched
you.
like 30 episodes.
Thank you.
But it gets so boring that I can't even get through it.
You know
Well, I'm
what's
sorry.
worse than One Piece? One Piece fans.
oh my
that's
god,
fair. I mean, if I was
It's
uncultured,
fair,
I'd say
though.
the exact same thing.
it's
Yeah.
painfully fair though
It's
because
the worst.
Like you're right. Like there are a
That's-
lot of really.
Like,
rough-
you can't tell me every episode is an adventure because it's not. 'Cause some of it is.
One
It's a
Piece,
dumb
1,000
and boring.
episodes. How could it?
as
I
an
don't
aside,
understand.
I promise you,
Because there's so much
time to
there's,
end.
there's filler in there that
there is
that doesn't even
maybe
make sense.
there is maybe one questionable arc when they have a boxing contest and
Oh, no, that
also
was
Luffy
very
gets
essential.
an afro.
yeah, absolutely.
But actually,
afro
Luffy
is
gets an
power.
afro, so I was like, "Oh,
That was great.
I'm pretty here for the representation." I wasn't mad at it, but
Saw a lot of Usopp said
that's
all that.
maybe the only questionable arc, bro. And like I I'll leave it there. We
So
have
you
other
said
topics.
long form?
We have other questions. Sorry,
All right. He said long form is harder, right?
I think so.
do you say,
I
Nick?
personally think so because I know the validation that the fans want to have after building it up. I know that I want to validate what has been talked about chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter. And even when it's like even something like Lord of the Rings, like it's 3 wildly thick books. Do you consider that short form or long form content?
It's a long form.
Right, that's completely long form. So to me, I'm here for the entire adventure. I totally wanted.
So you feel like long form is harder to write.
It's totally all right. I just because you have to fill up all the space in between with something that keeps the viewers interested. Yes, short term is very hard to write because you have to make it more impactful in a shorter amount of time. But I think making something over the long run keep their interest throughout the work, then also get validation once the payoff comes. I think that's really powerful, and I think that's a bit more representative of like very good writing. Again, that's not me trying to hate on short term. It's not me
No,
saying short
and
term
the
is
question
not
wasn't
difficult.
what you think is better. The question is what you think
That's
is
true.
harder
That's
to
true.
write.
More difficult. I think long term is more difficult.
Interesting.
To keep
Long
the
form.
interest throughout it. Long form. Thank you. I'm uncultured. I told you I'm an amateur. But I do think long form is more difficult to keep interest throughout it so that the payoff can come.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Plenty of people who have watched One Piece and be like, bro, I'm good after episode 600. But it's like episode 1070 and I am seeing the payoff of staying and reading for 1,000 episodes.
But it also took 1,000 episodes.
Yeah.
But you know,
So-
and that's the question.
So
is
is
that
that
bad?
hold up.
even
I would like
good
to interject.
writing
I
if
would
it
like to
takes
interject.
that long?
Yes, it is. One Piece is the greatest adventure novel
my
since Alexander Dumas' Count of Monte Cristo.
Fuck out of here.
10 out of 10.
If you think
10
that
out of
I'm
10.
fucking kidding,
10 out of 10.
I'm not, because
My
I'm writing
God.
my PhD on it. So if you think for a moment that One Piece, here's the thing.
What did I say about One
I
Piece
am-
fans?
Yeah,
one
exactly.
I will say this about all writing, and I am incredibly not that smart. If
Yeah,
you
you
don't like
watch
it
One Piece.
at the beginning, then it's not for you. And that's
Right.
true of short stories, and that's true of novels, and that's true of TV
Interesting.
shows.
That's fair.
It's especially true of anime. Sorry, everyone. I won't watch 3 fucking episodes if the first episode
If
sucks.
it's trash,
Yeah.
So
I'm stopping. Yeah.
But I mean,
if you are not engaged by the story, by that dumbass Luffy in episode 1, why would you stick around for 1,000 episodes if you don't like it on the first episode?
but I did like the first episode. That's the issue.
Wait, pause.
Chris is saying it got
Also,
worse.
Crest does not stick with crap that takes too long. I'll let you know that.
100%.
I'll let you
then,
know.
then,
He is a-
then that's the
100%.
issue.
It does not even count.
Chris has no
He
patience.
does not even count on this, bro. Man plays a
All
game.
right. So,
Bro.
but Anthony, is it easier to write short form works or long form works?
Can you define long form work for me?
1,000-page book.
So,
a thousand pages. That's a very long book.
so
a long
long
book.
form. We're talking about prose.
at
and
least
we're
a
talking
short.
about-
Okay, that's what like.
Are
Is
you
it
talking about-
novels? Or we
Sure,
'Cause
let's
there's
do
long
novels
form-
versus
like? There's novellas. There's short stories. There's flash fiction.
Well,
Then there's movies
I think
and shows.
When I think about the long form genre, I'm thinking about anything that is over 7,500 words. That is the bare minimum for a short story in most of the short story categories. So, I mean, the maximum for short story category is so. I would say
Okay.
anything over
I'll tell
7,500
you what.
words is long form.
Consider a prose. Consider anything
And the
over
cons?
So wait,
was it
anything
7,000
over
words?
7,000 words is
7,500
considered
7,500 words.
long form.
Okay, consider that, and then consider like a
think-
sonnet.
Well, I'm gonna ruin this answer, and that was essentially a tangent because I think that writing itself is the hard part.
Shit, you're not wrong.
I mean,
Dang it, facts.
long form, short
Facts.
form, a 2-line poem, it literally doesn't matter. It's all a fucking shit
I write a
show. It's all
haiku
incredibly
and
hard
take
Yeah.
months for it.
to
Yeah.
write. I mean, what was easier? It depends on the day. It depends on which liquor is being drunk. It depends on what the company is. It depends on where I'm writing. The hardest part about writing is the
writing.
writing itself. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't
Sorry,
do
that's-
that. I
that's-
don't do it anymore.
that is
'Cause
100%.
I mean, that's a, I agree.
It's accurate.
it's
Yeah.
100% a cop out answer, but I paid
Yeah.
$100,000 with a cop out answer. So
It's accurate.
That's
Nikki, what
fair.
do you think?
I mean, I agree. Like putting pen to paper is the hardest part. Is just starting. But once you've started, like assuming that we've started, not taking the cop out answer. I think that long form is more difficult. I think that especially if we're 7,500 words is really not a lot of words.
It's not.
So I think for me personally, I mentioned being perfectionist earlier. So having a hard limit for myself actually makes it easier because I know that I have to stop at some point and it allows me to refine. And in that way, I think it is easier. But in general, when you get to long form works, and especially when we start talking about like full length novels, not just short stories and like series, especially, if you just look at bare bones, the amount of work that goes into building a story that large, I think just makes it more difficult. Like on a literal hour for hour basis, like creating characters and creating a world that feels alive when you have that many pages is more challenging. I do think that they have different challenges. I think short form, you have to be a lot more choosy and specific with how you write and the exact, I say every sentence matters, but I mean, really every single sentence matters when you're looking at a short form piece, especially when you get to something like, think of like a haiku where like it's literally down to the
Every
syllable.
Every syllable
Like
matters,
it's different.
Yeah.
And I think haikus pose their own sort of difficulty.
God.
But like, I think I would rather spend time composing. If we're talking about like, if I'm thinking about what would be harder for me to do, would it be harder for me to compose a haiku or be harder for me to write a fantasy series? The fantasy series is harder, like in my opinion.
Interesting.
I'm gonna change my cop out answer if that's all right.
Are you gonna argue with me?
Nah. Stick to who you are. You're a cop.
Whoa. Whoa, pause. Pause.
Yo, hold on.
5-0.
I can't lie, man. It just the amount of content that you have to bust out in order to do long form content, I think is really the main problem.
Well, your reasoning was accurate. Like keeping people's attention.
Just
for that long.
keeping the attention for that
It's
long.
difficult.
Because I like what she was saying about every sentence mattering. Like maybe just because I know you guys and know how, like I know the very basic primal human urge to want to impress you guys when I say, hey, can you look at this thing I wrote? Like no matter like how much I know you guys don't hate me, I want to impress you guys when I show you some work. So like if it's going to be something that's long form, I'm like, dude, I need every sentence
You want to
matter.
impress me.
I know, never. So I need
funny.
every sentence to matter, and like I
Right.
want it to matter, and like I want you guys to know that I cared about like making this work matter.
Right.
So like just because I know the friends that I have, I know that I want the content to be worth them taking time out of their day life and schedule to read
To read it. Right.
You know?
I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there what
What-
were you gonna say?
Oh, I thought he was changing his answer.
Oh no. He's
He's
not
accepted
getting a
who he
chance.
is. He accepted who he
He
is.
doesn't get the chance. Nay. Is there any other language you would rather like write in or you're interested in writing in?
I'm a simple man.
Another language.
Oh,
I only speak English, so
Yeah. Only
that
'cause
sounds
if you
very
could.
So you mean like assuming that I had the complete knowledge of the language?
You're a polyglot now, and can
I'm
speak
now
everything.
a polyglot and speak any
Everything.
language.
You've
What
spoken
language do I
every
want to
language.
write
Polyglot?
Of course.
in? Arabic.
Interesting. I actually like the Arabic language.
Yeah,
Why
she
did you
got
say
my
that?
ass. Yeah, she
I
got
like
me.
it too.
I
I was
going
gonna
to
say the same. So
I listen to Arabic music so much.
I'm a big fan. I like the language. What do you think, Tony?
I would choose English.
English?
Yeah.
English is one of the worst languages, though.
ye
No, it's
old
not.
It is.
It's
Latin.
not one of the worst.
I
languages.
It's a terrible
love
language.
It's an incredibly beautiful, complex piece of shit. And I love it.
There you go.
I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world, unfortunately.
I would trade
if
it,
I
yeah.
could, I would. But no, if I had complete mastery of a language, I would choose the English language.
Interesting.
And then the only reason I choose French is the next one is because I don't have to learn it for my classics degree, which would be kind of nice.
French was my second choice, actually. That's so funny.
And then, just so our viewers at home know, there's no complete translation of Alexander Dumas' work unabridged, and there's only one translation of the Count of Monte Cristo unabridged in English, and it was done, I think, in either the early 1900s or the 1990s. Don't remember which one. I'd like a second one of that. If I could wish list one of our viewers to translate that for me, that would be great.
Yeah, right.
And if not, I have to do it myself.
Listen, if we have these types of viewers, I'll be amazed.
Yeah.
I love it. I'd probably choose an African language because I've always wanted to, because a lot of the native tongues are interesting. I
For
would
sure.
choose like
I want 3 languages.
something out of like Ghana or South Africa or Benin.
I would do the Yoruba people,
Yeah.
but also only because I've been doing Ren Fair. I would do a derivation of the Arabic language. I would do Turkish, but also I would totally do something in Latin. But I only ideally poetry and songs because it sounds really cool and like you are definitely casting a spell when you say anything in Latin. And so that's the only reason I would want to learn or write something in Latin is to create something that sounds like I'm casting a spell. So I would do like poetry or like the hymns of people from my world in my book, the hymns of it. But like I love the way Arabic looks, and like I love the way the Turkish language also looks and sounds. Then also just because I've been learning recently a lot more about like African, like ancient Africa, medieval Africa, Renaissance Africa. I would do the Yoruba people. I like the Yoruba language and I like how it sounds, looks, and is read. Curse you, Europe, for then making it English letters to describe the Yoruba language. But
That's how it is. Yeah.
that's how
What's
it's
that? What's that language? Trevor Noah speaks.
That's a great question.
Was it Alsa?
Something I'm not even going to act like I know how to say, but yes,
I think it was. I think that was what it was. It had a click.
it does.
I think it was Excel. Look that up real quick.
I shall attempt to do so.
Because I would love to write in one
Dang it,
of
not
those languages
Afrikaans.
with the clicks.
I can't remember.
Might have to
That's
switch
tough.
Oh
over.
yeah,
Is
XHOSA.
Soka? Soka?
Thanks, Mom.
What did you say?
Osa.
No, it's at the back of it. It's like
I can't do it.
also.
I can't do it, y'all.
You don't move
He
your
doesn't
your
move in
lips.
his whole mouth to do
Yeah,
this.
your lips don't move. It's in the back. It's like also. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. It's tough. Yeah, I would love to write in one of those languages.
Cool.
Those are cool.
Let me stop gagging on this mic real quick, okay?
Hey,
You
Let
okay?
me stop gagging on this mic. Okay, I'm done, y'all.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sussy, wussy.
My fault, y'all.
Yikes.
Did you say the thussy?
I the McCussy?
Please.
Stop it.
Please.
Considering
Lord.
the people you know, can anyone else write your biography?
My biography? Fam, I'm only 29, bro.
Yeah.
I don't need a biography.
I'm not
yet.
saying today, Edward.
Oh, facts. Give me some time, bro. I'll have Samuel L. Jackson, right? I don't know, bro. Like
You don't know Samuel L. Jackson.
Somebody that you know
Someone
to
that
write
you
your
know.
biography.
I would want
Yeah.
someone.
No.
I would want
No?
someone at this table to write it, but I also don't feel like enough people know the depths of me yet, except literally Nicole. That's
I would
quite
say, yeah,
actually about it.
maybe Trey is the only one that could write it.
Maybe, and even then, I'd feel like it's not the true life
Right.
story.
Interesting.
You know, yet. I'd have to go do some research, ask some people about her. Like, I'd still need to learn a lot more about the people I'm trying to actually write it for.
Well, talking about yourself though.
Oh, for myself,
for
for
yourself.
sure.
Yeah.
You would try. She would literally be able to actually do it and
Well-
know who to talk to about it.
That would depend. That would depend if your parents are still with
Facts.
alive.
Yeah. If I have time.
Because
yeah.
if
What'd your parents?
if they outlive you, then I could write your biography.
I don't know why I'm pleading.
Like-
Would your parents be able to write your biography though?
I think my mom might be able to. I don't think my dad would be able to.
Mine would.
I think if my dad
Not
tried
for
to, he would end up actually telling a bit of his
His story.
more.
Yes.
It is not me saying that he is a very selfish person. It's me
Yeah.
saying he would end up relating.
Because that's how he relates.
Yeah, he would
Yes.
relate me
Absolutely
to his
correct.
life stories.
100%.
Yeah, he'd be like, "This is what I experienced and
Yeah.
what I believe Trey,
Trey
must
must-
have felt
yeah.
in a similar moment."
Yeah.
When like
because it
"No!"
matches. Yeah.
It wasn't similar. He had a very Central American, African American growing up in racist KKK, Ku Klux Klan of South, like deep South America.
The land.
That's not my life. So he would attempt to talk about it, but
Right.
he doesn't have a lot of the same perspectives that like I end up.
It's
growing up
interesting.
with.
Yeah, you're correct.
He's a bit more religious than me. He's a bit more militaristic than me. He's a bit more cut and dry. And that just isn't who I am. I'm like wildly malleable, frankly, to the people that I meet, and a lot
Yeah,
more
you're right.
social.
And deeply spiritual, I would even
Yeah,
say.
wildly spiritual,
But
frankly.
not in the way.
not religious, but spiritual.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree with you. What about you, Tony? You think anyone could write your
No.
biography? No. Me neither.
No way.
I don't have anyone.
Well,
I'm a mystery to most people.
Enigmas,
I'm
if
not.
you will.
I'm not a mystery. I'm a pretty open book, but I think
I'm a mystery for sure.
everybody who could's probably dead. So I think that's
Interesting.
I'm
I
gonna
don't like how you said that.
Anthony's
Makes me
biography.
think you have something to do with it. What, you good?
No.
You good, Tony?
They've all been
All right,
handled. I won't worry about them anymore.
They asked one too many questions during
There
the
we go.
biography interview.
All right, Tony.
They were wondering about some things I had to handle.
Write Anthony's biography, and we'll call it "My Heart Has a Clenched."
My heart.
Penis.
Let me please.
A novel, a biography of
When I was
Anthony Garcia.
One more time. My heart has a anus,
Clenched.
and I clenched. And other short stories.
And other short
It's gonna be a
stories.
YouTube short
gonna
soon.
be-
Follow us on
yeah.
YouTube at a lot.
That'll
about
be his
pod.
biography.
Yeah,
A
for
lot
sure.
about clench, please.
Yeah.
A lot about
Yeah.
a lot about hashtag.
When I was in college, not college, when I was in high school, I thought about writing an autobiography when I was older, and I was going to call it "With Thumbs Inside of Pockets," right? The life and times of.
I remember you talking about that
Chaos
actually.
team.
Yeah.
And I only called it that because I feel like that's how I lived my high school days. I just kind of like observed around, like I would always kind of sit at the end by myself, maybe with a couple homies, but I'd still single myself out mentally, you know, just look around because people watching is one of my favorite things to do. So I'd just single out and watch people interact and see how they are.
It's
like,
a trademark of a writer, just sitting in public places,
Like,
staring at
people
people.
watching?
Like,
Of
give me
course.
ideas
Yeah.
about your
I need
lives.
them.
Yeah,
What are humans
it's the
like?
best. And if I were to think of myself as like, it's just kind of being an entity there and not even just like a person, just being an entity, being able to roam around and just watch people live their lives. That's how I would like kind of write my biography as an outside observer who was also on the inside, but felt
Within
himself.
and without.
Yeah,
Mm.
felt himself
You
on
will.
the outside. So
It's an F. Scott Fitzgerald
so
quote.
me just like
Powerful.
standing on a wall with my thumbs inside of my pockets, just watching.
Oh, the cool kid.
Just watching people roam around and see how they interact with each other. That's what I was gonna call it when I got older. I don't know if I call it that now.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if I'd call it that now. Is also a good name for an autobiography.
Yeah, it is.
That is a really
Suck
good
at
one.
titling
I'm
my
really good with
stuff,
titles.
So I would not. I'm awful at titles. Can you give me some ideas, please?
I feel
I'll
bad.
think about it. I'll think about one for you.
It's rough to title things. I title
titles.
I title my comic books, bro. Like books, single name explanation.
So much easier. My poems are so much easier to title. I don't know
Really?
why. Yeah, I think they're
right.
way easier to title.
I get a title first, and then I get content of the
really?
poem.
I
Yeah.
write the poem first, and then I title them. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes very rarely I'll get like a line first, and then I'll
Yeah.
write it. But usually I get a title first because titles are easier for me. I don't know.
That's
Yeah, I
wild.
don't know.
I suck at titles.
Biographies are so funny. I feel like, can anybody ever write a biography about anybody ever really?
I wonder, right?
I feel like you
I don't
must
know.
be someone
I feel like there's
impactful.
so many secrets.
You have to have like
to
been at-
myself
been at that
I feel the
person's hip.
same. I feel the same.
that
What's
like
the
how
last-
could anyone possibly
Yeah.
tell an accurate story of my life,
Right.
except for me?
Except for you.
I
What's
feel
the
like
last autobiography that y'all read?
I don't read autobiographies.
I don't either. I don't know. Well, let me think.
I don't think there's one I care enough about to read their
The
autobiography.
only one
Yo.
I saw the only one I
Unless
saw
you write one.
any text from at all is one about Chadwick Boseman, and that was a little like biography. It's almost a magazine.
Autobiography or biography?
Biography. It's
Okay.
like a little magazine that man's passed, so like
Yeah,
he didn't
yeah.
even have a chance to write it. But it's about like all his accomplishments, all the movies he's done, the school he went to, why he went to the school, the sickness he had, the family he had, and ultimately, I feel the exact same way. It no matter how much people want to write a significant biography about someone, they don't know their whole life.
Right.
It's so
It would
simply
be difficult.
all
Well,
you can do is write
in
their
that-
accomplishments.
In that instance,
And failures.
I'd rather watch a documentary on that.
Yeah, I'd rather
Instead.
just give me a
Because then
documentary.
you'll have scenes of that person talking about themselves.
I agree.
Right? Or
agree.
a family member who's close to
Yeah.
them talking about him, which is still not the greatest representation, but it's close enough.
I saw one about Malcolm X, and
Yeah, that's probably
right, and
the
again,
only-
to me, it needed to be a visual thing.
Yeah.
Because no matter how much I read about the person, like if I don't hear their voice, hear their soul coming out in the things that they're saying, it is really hard to relate the text with the person and not imagine that the author was interpreting it that
Yeah,
way.
a certain way,
Right.
right?
So when I was able to like see a documentary on him, they're like, yeah, they have all the officials who are like, yes, and we believe that this is how he felt and this is what he was saying. And then they literally show him in a clip, this is how I believe. And he's saying directly what he thinks. I'm like, okay, that's more believable.
But like,
You know,
but that's also like a face that people put on. Like,
Sure.
So
When they're
that's the
speaking.
problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Public
biogra-
speaking,
like
yeah.
being a biographer specifically is a craft, and I think that a part of autobiographies and biographies is when people don't notice the craft, when they're just reading it and they're thinking, oh yeah, this is just like the story of this guy's life, and we're just going through all these events.
is the person.
And
Yeah.
yes, it is we are reading an engaging story about this person. It doesn't feel like I am reading a list of events that happened. It reads like
Right,
a
I
narrative
see.
that's happening.
True,
Yeah.
true.
I see
And
what
that's
you're
a part of the
For
craft
sure.
of like biography.
saying. Yeah. I don't know. No one can write my biography right now, but
Again, I'm not famous enough for
We'll
that
see.
to even
And
be worth it.
When
you know,
I feel like every person's story is worthy of being told, actually.
maybe.
But I feel like when you think about like even like how we're talking about even right now, without thinking about it, we're all choosing how we represent ourselves subconsciously to the people around us and what we wear and everything. So everybody's perception of you is completely unique.
Yep.
And it's also has nothing to do with who you are. It's
Yeah.
just their perception. So when you're dealing with biographies and things like that, it's always going to be the perception, somebody else's perception of your life. It's never going to be an accurate telling of your life.
That's true.
It's just who do you trust? Whose perception of yourself do you
trust the
trust
most?
enough
Yeah,
to
yeah.
represent you accurately on the
Yeah.
page and tell a story? I think it
I
relates back to what
agree
you
with
were
I completely
saying.
forgot about the word memoir. That's the word I was thinking about this whole time. So,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like
Yeah.
autobiography.
That's very
I'm like this.
interesting.
Why-
there's a thing here.
There's a word. There's
A cloud.
I've read so many of them, but I don't remember what they're called.
This cloud of memory moving around his brain, and he's like, "What are you?"
I'll tell you, what is there like a show or like a movie or something you've watched where you thought, man, this is some really good writing?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Castlevania and Inception.
Castlevania was so
Castlevania,
good.
right.
10 out of 10.
Yes.
Every season.
every character, every season, every episode. I was like, they're great. I understand them. their purpose and drive and reasoning completely makes sense to me.
So good.
Every line that they were saying, every line that Belmont was saying, every line that Alucard was saying,
good.
All of them.
Comedic relief.
It was perfect,
Made
bro.
you feel.
I loved Castlevania.
Oh
It's
my
so excellent.
God.
It's so excellent.
There was comedy and yet one of the most gruesome stories I've ever seen.
Yes.
Yet I had some of the best, most authentic laughs as well in that story.
It's very, very
And it was
good.
so great. And they were going over some very dark topics. And
Literally
still,
fighting vampires.
Yeah. And we're still able to keep it all together.
Yeah. Well, now that we're on anime
Camilla.
series,
Oh my God. Camilla.
I need to go live.
Such a good
I'm
villain.
thinking.
Sorry. Okay.
but now that we're on animated series, every single DC animated film
Top tier. My God.
is so well
My
written.
God, dude.
I recently just rewatched Superman Red Sun, and the way that they put that together, it's supposed to be Soviet Union Superman. First of all,
I'm
the
feeling
concept.
it. And I'm feeling it. I was feeling it the whole time, dude.
I mean, Mark Miller.
Yeah,
does-
come on.
Yeah.
That concept is so crazy that it was so excellently written. You find Superman thinking he's a hero,
Yeah.
turns out to be the villain, and then turns out to be, because what he saw was villainy and he thought he could switch it, but it ended up becoming the villain himself because he did exactly the same thing he saw. So well written.
Dang it. There was
I can't. All the Superman films that DC recently wrote, so good. All the what is it?
That's
Not the Killing Joke.
You don't like the Killer Joke. What is it? What the
there was also a
no.
Hispanic Superman.
What are they called? The group Justice League.
That's
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. All the Justice League, so good.
Where
You don't like the Killing Joke?
That was a good.
I thought it was Up and Down too.
I don't read comics.
Yes, it was. In Justice League Gods and Monsters, they had a Hispanic Superman.
Evil.
And
Oh.
he was also like, I definitely see the capitalist people of America and actually how I can use this. And so like
Yeah.
every other version of Superman is frankly way more realistic than actual Superman, but it's the same concept. Like is Superman from just a different background. If he grew up even mildly different than he grew up out of classic, Kansas and happy-go-lucky, the most wholesome possible family, story would be vastly different. And I love that showcase of Superman every single time. And Hernan Guerra, that's what. Yeah,
I wonder if there'll ever be
Oh, it was
like a black version of Superman.
there definitely is. I don't remember his name, but there 1,000% is a black version of Superman because in their reality, it literally made sense that a guy who gains his powers from the sun
Would be
is
black.
a darker complexion.
Makes sense, right?
Whoa.
Literally, like
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
like they.
Yeah.
You mean like the component that makes skin dark that allows
Yes.
you to absorb the sun's
Right.
rays?
Yeah,
Like so, if
it's-
someone would have power from the sun, it
They
would
would
make
indeed
sense
be
that they would be darker.
Yes.
Right.
That's wild.
Wild, and
Interesting.
it changed America.
Someone needs to let white Jesus know. ASAP. Just saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is pretty.
You were
great.
saying, Tony?
Oh my
I don't
god!
remember what it is. Spotify did a audio drama with Batman, and he was, and it was a black Batman. And
Nice.
oh god, I don't remember what the name of the Thomas Wayne is, but he is in so many things. But yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
And I
Spotify
remember-
Batman.
Yeah, Spotify Batman.
You need to find out that name because I need to listen to that.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, figure that out. But yeah, for me, it's the DC films. What about you, Nikki Lee?
That is a great question.
Show or movie? Could be a show.
I stole Castlevania from him. I'm sorry, and I said Inception. That's rude.
I have recently rewatched The Handmaid's Tale, and I thought that the writing on that show was pretty good, especially with Serena Joy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show.
Not yet. I'm familiar with the show.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Waterford, the commander's wife, one of Offred's oppressors.
Oh, she a bitch.
Yeah, she's terrible. But
Yeah.
I think that, I've hated her for so long. I hated her I hated her in the books, and I hated her when I first watched the show. And then now I went back and rewatched the show because actually, like, being a teacher, I teach media studies, and there's a clip that they showed from The Handmaid's Tale that was on one of the exams from a previous year for ACE. So we watched it in class, and in watching it and analyzing it inspired me to like go back and rewatch the whole series. And now that we have it from season 1 to season 5, and I was able to watch it back to back so quickly, and especially the first time I watched The Handmaid's Tale, I actually had a really hard time watching it. I had to take breaks. As it was just, it's really heavy.
It's heavy, yeah.
But her character in particular, I feel like it's very interesting how she was written. And because when you're dealing with a concept like, someone who is so she's living in this world like just completely riddled with misogyny,
right,
and is perpetrating it, and so when we think about people who are themselves like victims of this mindset, but then simultaneously are the ones that continue to create and employ the mindset, and she was foundational in the creation of Gilead itself, and then in the subsequent oppression of women, wrote a book in support of Gilead, and then now cannot read in Gilead.
Wow.
And so like her character and watching her character transform over 5 seasons, and this concept being explored of why do people do this to themselves? Because quite frankly, Serena Joy exists today in America with some people who continue to behave and vote against their own interests and hurt other women. Women that promote misogyny and slut shame and, and do all of these really hurtful things to other women. And like, why do people do that? And
backwards, right?
Right. And I just thought that the show really explored this character. And watching it again, I had so much hatred for her for so long, but then in rewatching, I found myself seeing these moments of empathy that they built in, where you can see that she understands and like has a connection with Offred, and but then still like that fear like yanks her back, and she continues to like kind of clutch to what she's known, even when she realizes that it's failing her and her daughter and all these other women. And so anyway, I just thought that was really well written, and to watch that character's whole arc play out like quickly, not having seasons in between, like, months and months in between, was really satisfying.
Think about that name, Offred. Think about like a head bowing name. Like if you have that name, you have to have a master.
Right. Her name is literally of Fred.
Yeah.
Because his name is
Fred.
And then if you add another E into her name, it's offered.
Yeah.
Like something offered.
Maybe like a child.
Damn.
Yeah.
I did not even notice
Very
or
good.
know that.
Very good.
Wow.
And the novel is also phenomenal. Margaret Atwood plug.
Have you has anyone seen The Favorite?
No.
With Emma, is it Emma, what's her name from Spider-Man? Is it Emma Watson?
Emma Watson?
No, from Spider-Man.
Wait, from Spider-Man?
No,
Emma Stone.
Emma Stone? Mary Jane Watson?
Yeah.
That's the character.
The
not
Favorite is it's one of those.
Gwen Stacy?
Gwen
Gwen
Stacy.
Stacy?
Gwen
Yeah.
Stacy.
Yeah, it's one of those period pieces where there's this lady who she plays. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, okay, good. Emma Stone. I was a little off.
She's great. Also,
yeah.
Thank you, Emma Stone.
But it's like an 18th century England like status quo piece where she's one of the maids. Well, not one of the. Is she a maid? I don't know if she's a maid in it, but she's part of the court. She's a servant. And she's a servant to the court, but she becomes the favorite servant of, I guess, the dude who's next in line to be a king.
Oh, Lord.
Or something like that. And then you know what happens.
This is going, yeah.
Come on, you know what happens.
Right.
What happens?
Secret relationships.
Okay.
He treats her differently than the other servants.
What?
But
They
I just
did
said
the
this to
No way.
the trope. But the writing in there is so good. Emma does such a good job because her character is, it's a servant, not supposed to be smart, but her character has so many good witty lines that kind of separate her from the rest of the servants.
Street smarts. Can't teach it in a book.
Yeah. It kind of separates her from the rest of the servants, which makes her the favorite.
Yeah.
But you can
I
learn
can
it on
see-
Sesame
It's like a 3-hour film. It's so good.
Learn street
I
smarts
will
on
also
Sesame
say, because
Street.
I've literally just been using my laptop to look it up, 2 of my other most favorite well-written.
Is he going to say Girl in the Gone?
No, I'm resisting.
I'm like, please, we know it's good.
That's the anime.
I'm
love
shocked
too,
you're
yeah.
not wearing the shirt.
I considered.
Is your drill the drill that will pierce the heaven?
Stop it.
Stop.
it
I'll cry.
right now.
I'll cry.
He'll have a whole mental breakdown.
Stop.
at the table.
Please. Sorry. But Inglorious Bastards and Django Unchained.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. I love Tarantino films.
Quentin.
Oh, I love them. But,
Hateful
Hateful Eight.
That one's so good.
Going into
I love
movies
the
that
I
are
love Tarantino.
like just beautifully well written, and then like also for me growing up were like pivotal movies in my understanding of, oh, this is what it means to have like amazing writing,
Especially Django, who's not a victim.
yeah, and it not just be extreme explosions, huge set piece moments, and sensationalizing. Like no. You are sitting in a conversation for like 10 to 20 minutes, and you are completely enthralled by everything happening. You're not mad, antsy. You're not wanting it to move on. You're like, oh my God, how are they going to handle this? Like, oh my God, the
that
tension right
whole
now.
final dinner scene in that film where they sit down at the dinner table and like with Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
Yeah, so good.
And then you have
whole
Samuel L. Jackson
time.
who's playing his like, the
Uncle
head
Ruckus.
house servant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uncle Ruckus.
Yeah. And like that whole
The tension the entire time.
Oh my gosh. And
He
then
actually cut himself, by the way.
yeah,
Yes.
I
Oh
know.
my
And
Lord.
his like
He was
fervor
like,
in the scene.
I'm gonna use this. Sorry. Just rubs our
Yeah.
my God. Like
He didn't rub his actual blood on
No,
her
that was
face.
an accident.
That
Oh
was
my
not
God.
real.
But he actually cut
he
himself.
really did cut himself, and then it looked so good that they kept it. They stitched his. He didn't
Use
get
it.
stitches. They
Yeah.
stitched his hand up, and then they used the blood. Then they used fake blood.
Oh, so
he didn't
good.
actually wipe
Yeah,
blood
that'd
on
be-
her
that's-
face.
that's-
I was here for
unsanitary.
it. I was here for it. The
He,
whole-
he was
movie
having all
magic.
sorts of issues already in that film. Like supposedly he was because they wanted him to say the N word and everything.
Yeah, it was a hard time.
And he was like, I don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson was like,
Listen.
we're here to
Monkey
film.
We're filming.
Like,
Motherfucker.
You
get over yourself.
You gonna say this word.
He's like, I don't have time for your white guilt.
Like if Samuel L. Jackson tells you to say the N word, you gotta say it, bro.
He's like, shit.
I guess I'll say it. I'm sorry. This is for the culture. You're gonna say it, Leo.
You kind of got to do it now.
Yeah,
the whole,
bro.
and the whole just everything in that film. The whole final reveal in the room, not final reveal, but like when what's his name, the dentist
Hans,
guy.
not Hans.
Hans Gruber.
Yeah, but what's the name of the actor? Christopher what?
I'm gonna find
Waltz.
out.
Christoph.
Christoph Waltz.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz.
10
And
out of 10
that
actor.
whole conversation in the library. I mean,
When he's finally
Hilda von
just trying.
Schaft.
Yes.
when
he's
he
trying
just
to
can't
buy
take it
her.
anymore, and he's like, they were just trying to buy her, and he's just yanking them around
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he can to flex his power, and he
Right.
just like can't take it
Nah,
anymore.
this man needs to die.
And the guy's like obsessed with the Three Musketeers, and he's like, he was black.
By the way,
Yeah.
ends this man's career.
Yeah.
Oh my lord!
I like it.
Yeah, Christoph Waltz, man's somehow is a freer of slaves, yet also the Jew
Nazi?
hunter.
Yeah.
Like, what a
range.
contrast.
The range.
He's a good actor.
The range, my guy.
Yeah.
Like you can completely hate him as a villain and then absolutely love him as a hero. Like
Yeah.
He was a hero.
he was a hero. Man's
And somehow Bounty Hunter. One of my favorite movies, by the way.
also
Django
true.
Unchained is really
also
good.
true, man.
It's really good. What's what y'all writing next? What's on the list?
Okay. Starting with me. I don't know. I have multiple answers. Can I pick
me
two
one.
things? Okay, one thing. I'm writing a book set in the future, in a post-men society.
Before you finish your first book.
What do you mean before I finish my book?
Before
I'm
you-
writing them at the same time.
I see.
Just whenever like inspirations, takes me.
Leo
So
D.
So post-men apocalyptic.
it's not even like an apocalyptic scenario
okay.
necessarily. Like men, I'm so sorry.
I mean,
you guys
we die first. It's
destroyed
fine.
yourselves.
We
We had a
We
good,
do
we
that
had a good run.
actively.
with
Yeah,
war,
we had a
and
good run.
so
We had a
like
good
pretty
run.
much it was like this like
Yeah.
global war, and most men died, and then
Right.
women like came into power, and now it's this like matriarchal society that men are oppressed, and they're essentially all slaves
Nice.
to these women in power, and it's like a futuristic but the world is like utopian except that it revolves around the oppression of men. So like
Yeah, I
they've
like this.
created an advanced society technologically, and it revolves around
Can't wait to read that one.
I'm here for it.
yeah. It's
death
like
by
it was like
snooze?
I
What?
did it like, oh my god.
Sorry,
I did it
sorry.
when I wrote it, I was inspired to create something that feels like the world that we live in, but it's not. And it was really written to make people in positions of power uncomfortable, because if you hate the way that they're treated in the book, guess what you're doing? You're treating people like that today,
I see.
especially women. So
I like it.
yeah.
Picasso.
Yeah. So yeah, like there's stuff like the men can't, like they can only show parts of their skin, like because they can't be too tempting to the women, like, like all that stuff. Yeah, that's not allowed in their world.
funny.
They have to wear a long sleeve shirt underneath,
Yeah.
and it has to cut to the
Disgusting.
ankles. And there's like
Oh, I'm done.
rules
Yeah.
about like how tight their clothes can fit and stuff.
I like
so
it.
it's like a full role reversal.
I like it. I like it a
I'm
lot.
here for it.
Twin, you writing anything?
I'm writing the Great American Grocery List.
I can't wait to read that.
Exciting, actually.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you can't wait to listen to this episode that comes out on Friday. The YouTube will come out on Saturday or Sunday, depending on how much work I have to do.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here. Go ahead and go to visualadditives.com for all your books and all your publishing needs.
Hot.
Yeah. This will be out on Friday. Thanks for listening. This is Loud About Nothing. Bye.
I'll see you.
Peace.